CuntCast podcast is rated not safe for work. Urban Dictionary describes it as internet content generally inappropriate for the typical workplace, i.e., would not be acceptable in the presence of your boss and colleagues. All of these definitions apply. As a result, we will provide you with 15 seconds of pleasant, non-offensive music for you to advance to the next program, acquire headphones, or lock all available doors and windows for a proper sensual CuntCast experience. Please, be safe out there and enjoy the program.
Good evening, my fellow sexual subjects. You're listening to a broadcast of the CuntCast podcast, a conversation with a classily characterized cunt, carefully crafted with cognizant courage to champion conscientious consummation. And I'm your host, Najela Ree, and I'm joined, as always, with my favorite human being, Mr. Aaron Rand Freeman. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm here, present, and enjoying.
I feel like
go on.
that's all we can be right now.
I find myself. It's strange. It's not related to the CuntCast topic overall, but I find myself playing less social games and playing more games by myself because of the pandemic. I
feel that's very related to the CuntCast because I think a lot of people are playing by themselves now.
Sure. I get so many people asking me to play a thing, and I just generally, for the most part, I just prefer to play games by myself now. It might be because I speak to more people electronically than a little bit, probably because of my job, but I enjoy the silence of just having a story unfold in front of me now more than a little bit. And it's harder to get me on a social game. And I spend a lot more time playing games by myself and enjoying it.
I feel like right now, all social interactions are now being kind of reweighted. So before, like, if you just wanted to shoot the shit on, like, Google or FaceTime, it was just that. But now it is, like, the bedrock of our social interactions.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's like, you're just reclaiming your alone time, which at one point maybe playing a game with other people still felt like alone time, but now it's like heavy lifting socially.
You know what? It's funny that you mentioned that because it is loaded. I find that people who are I play games with people who are trying to do a thing, whether they're trying to complete a task or win a few matches or whatever. It's fine. But now I feel like I'm playing games with people who are actively trying to get their social interaction. They're trying to get something personally from it. And it's a lot of pressure when you can feel it. And as a result, I'm just like, I'm just going to play Resident Evil 3. I'm sorry.
Now I feel bad because I wanted you to play Streets of Rage with me.
Oh, I don't care about that. Because it's a little different where there's no desperation. You would be asking me the people asking me to play something who normally wouldn't are always very confusing, and it's fine. I guess that we're all trying to develop new situations and take a shot and grow our horizons, but you would ask me to play Streets of Rage with you anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't.
Also, I'm just very bad at Streets of Rage, and I just need a friend. I'm not going to see the end of this game by myself for many moons.
And you can set it to easy, and you can change all types of stuff.
I will not set it to
Well,
easy. I will
also,
play on normal.
they have assists so that when you die, you can be like, let me come back with extra powers or extra lives or whatever. So you can beat the game. The
Listen,
game is designed for you to beat it, but it does get, as a result,
if
it
you beat the game because you had 5 lives on every level, at the end you're only gonna have like 300 points.
absolutely, but you would have beaten the game. And I'll say this. Streets of Rage, because of that system, is now unusual. Like the game is 12 levels, and it gets harder than the base old Streets of Rage games about halfway through, and then it just continues to spike all the way up to the last level. Like it's absolutely insane how hard the
It
game
got
gets.
exponentially harder.
Yes, and it's like it has like several tiers, so it's like it gets way harder at like level 8. No, at level 6 of 12, and then by level 8 of 12, you're just it's absolutely insane, and then level 12 is it's just ridiculous. So, um,
Like I was watching Justin Wong do the boss rush
right,
of Streets of Rage, which usually I don't do because I don't want bosses spoiled for me. But like I saw a preview of the I guess big boss, and I'm like, there's no way I could do that by myself.
right, you definitely could, but Streets of Rage is very much a game that requires like practice in a way that beat 'em ups have never required practice. That's the thing about it. Beat 'em ups
Yeah.
usually you beat them, you just kind of memorize one or two things and you can kind of just wail away to the end. But Streets of Rage 4 requires legitimate practice. It's like a fighting game, like a legitimate fighting game.
Yeah. And I'm not good at them. But I enjoy playing them, mostly because I love the ridiculous storylines. And also, I want like half of these characters to be my cool lesbian girlfriend. Like the drip on display for these character designs blows me away.
Yes, Streets of Rage has the best character designs in terms of art I've ever seen. It actually, I'll say this as a cast, including enemies, it has the best character designs I've ever seen in my life. I have never seen such a wide array of bodies and
Uh,
and
I mean,
features and
a
skin
lot of them
colors.
are just from the like the actual old games,
Right,
maybe slightly tweaked or updated, but it's like it's just the same guy,
right.
which I love. But I used to always use online games as like pre-dates. Like I always thought it was cheaper than going to have coffee with somebody if
Right.
I wasn't sure I was going to be into them. But if I see how you like game, that was my way of like weeding people out. So I definitely understand that it could be very weighty if it suddenly has more meaning
That
than I'm just playing a game.
it's funny that you mentioned that. I remember I had played I forgot what game I played with someone, and they were commenting that I was actively splitting the power ups with them, like what we were playing Streets of Rage, where if you had less health, then I wasn't gonna grab a power up. Like we didn't have to be on mic to know this. Like if you had less health, I just wasn't gonna be grabbing the health, and it was just kind of a legitimate sliding scales. If who had less health got the health, and someone else commented on that was like the first time they had ever played with someone who had done that, and she thought I was a real
Common
gentleman,
courtesy.
and I'm like, you just you had less health. She's explaining that her boyfriend would just kind of run forward and vacuum up all the power ups. I'm just like, well, how are you guys supposed to both get to the end of the level if you don't have any health?
I feel there's a strategy to that because, like, when we were playing, there were definitely times where I'm like, I could take that power up, but I was not taking it because I'm like, I need you to have more life than me.
Hey, listen, we can all get through it. The Streets of Rage is doable. It really is. It really is doable, and it's a lot of fun. I want to do it, like I said, and I play more than you, but it's definitely it's I want everyone to succeed at the end of the level. Really, even if I am play the game even I play the game more than you, I still want everybody to succeed by the end of the level. And apparently, that's a rare thing. I don't understand that, but it is. So
I also think it's the games that you choose to play with people that can be a little more taxing. Because I remember when I used to play Borderlands, that used to be one of my games that I play with people. And that used to be a little more grading depending on if I was higher level or lower level. Because if I was the higher level player, then I felt like I was more of a babysitter. And,
Yes, absolutely. That's
and it was
actually
also like kind of staticky if it was like one of those predate situations. Because I kind of got a little glimpse of how this person is going to act when there's like a power imbalance in my favor.
right.
Yeah, because if you can't handle me being a higher level than you, you're definitely not gonna be cool if I make more money than you,
Absolutely.
or I'm more publicly known than you, or something like that, which, it's a thing.
It's actually, I'm not gonna lie. I think we might have stumbled upon something like audience. Like maybe gaming as a predate is. I mean, I don't think this is a practice that should stop. I think this is a practice that we could expound upon. It's something that we should actually promote. Play a game with someone you want to go on a date
It
with. You'll
is,
learn a
but
lot.
then, like, the downside of it, which I have found, is then I might have really bad experiences, and then that sours the game. Like, I can't play Gears of War,
Well, you had
like,
a
any of the
well,
like
you had a whole ass relationship that was centered around.
yeah. Gears of War. So like I haven't picked it up. I tried. You've told me how good the later installments are. I mean, I haven't seen it's just so much emotions get trapped in media for me. Like for some people it's songs or poetry or whatever. Video games are pretty much the same. So like I know I really like Mortal Kombat because I played a whole bunch of strip Mortal Kombat in my day.
Strip.
I have
Excuse me.
some
What?
good memories attached to that.
Strip Mortal
Uh,
Kombat?
Nobody loses strip Mortal Kombat.
Right. I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna put that in the notes. I'm just gonna put that in the notes for future recommendation. Like you don't have to get into it. It seems pretty self-explanatory, but I'm
Yeah.
just gonna go ahead and write down strip Mortal Kombat as a thing that should be explored.
Yeah. What I like about strip Mortal Kombat is it destroys any incentive for like jeering somebody for not being great at the game because you don't mind if they're bad because if they're bad, you get to see their wiener. And if I'm bad, he gets to see my boobies. And you can see how that means win-win for every loss.
Strip Mortal Kombat, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
That might actually be the title of the episode, but that's neither here nor there. But yes, this is like
Also, if somebody could hear me explain the lore of Mortal Kombat without their eyes glazing over, then I know that they might have potential.
yep. I mean, Mortal Kombat story is real. I'll say this: it's a source of compatibility where there's someone can not just enjoy the things you like because everyone's not supposed to have the same interest, but there is a moment where you're able to understand why someone else takes joy in it. Mortal Kombat story is ridiculousness over the course of 30 years. And it's gotten more ridiculous and has not flinched. So to hear someone tell it is not a terrible thing. If your eyes glaze over because someone's telling you about Mortal Kombat because you don't know what it is or you don't have interest in it, then that's a compatibility issue. Where you can tell someone about something you enjoy and they're just like, "Oh, I don't get it. It's boring." Like that's a legitimate compatibility issue.
Yeah. Because I've I like Mortal Kombat lore because it's stupid.
What?
It's a great source of joy for me. Um, it's been stupid since I was a child, and I just find its commitment to its ridiculousness very reassuring in these
Yep.
uncertain times.
Yep. And that's exactly. I mean, that is of value, and that's the thing. I think, like I said, it's a compatibility issue. Like, if you were to sit across from someone and you would be like, "Well, what is your guilty pleasure?" and they say they don't have one, then you got to get up from the table because you should have a guilty pleasure. It's a compatibility issue. Like, I like Resident
Well,
Evil. Like, I like Resident Evil's story,
I
all of them.
try not to have guilty pleasures, but I can proudly like something that I know is trash.
Right. Well, there you go. And that's something that it's good to talk about. Like, say, if the thing you like that is trash, because we all like things that are trash, but the thing you like that is trash is like racist shit, then that's not the same as me liking Mortal Kombat or Resident Evil. What I like is trash in the way professional wrestling is trash, and that is fine. So it's like there are all these points of compatibility that we kind of gloss over that are actually really important. Like you've stumbled upon several really important points in developing any type of relationships or anything.
I also noticed that like Mortal Kombat just being your most base really delivers in the thick thigh saving lives
Yes.
department
Yes.
for the dudes. They give me the thickums. That's what I like.
Mm-hmm. It's my it is my favorite. Is my favorite fighting game. Also, as a person who's always questioned the need for, at least Mortal Kombat 10 and 11, as I've questioned the need for titties in my fighting games, or the fact that someone can do several backflips in a pair of 8-inch heels. I prefer the fact that Mortal Kombat 10 and 11 have done away with that, and remove the arbitrary titties from their game, except for I forgot the name of the place where Katana and Melina and Rain are from, but they all are naked. My favorite thing in Mortal Kombat 10, yeah, where they're.
Why do I know that off the top of my head?
Say it again.
Adenia.
Okay, yeah, good to know. 'Cause I guess I love it. Like I said, I remember when I saw Katana and Melina, I was like, why are they still kind of naked? And then Rain came out dressed like Prince, and I was like, oh, they're all naked. It's hot. I get it. He had his midriff. He had his midriff top with the V cut. Like he just pretty much just wrapped the cloth around his dick and went outside. And I was like, with his mask on.
How they roll over there.
That's how they dress. It's hot, man. We're all attractive. It's hot. So, yes, I see it. Yeah. Go on gaming dates. Yeah, folks.
It's good. The only thing is like, I feel weird sexualizing games to some extent. Like there's a lot of Overwatch porn.
You know what's funny is there's a level of consent that I assume is not given. Like even if like I think a character is cute, like I think Jade's really attractive, right? But to a certain degree, while she is not real
best girl,
right? But to
if
a point,
you play through Mortal Kombat 11, she's like a ride or die.
Right. And as a result, I don't know if she would sleep with me. So it's like there are certain limits. I'm like, I appreciate Jade. Like if she was a coworker, I would be like, Jade's really attractive. She's really good. I appreciate her. But I can't sexualize past that point because I have no indication that she would. And I know she's a video game character and all that stuff, but still.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to put on airs. Like, I was a member of the Y Gallery. I saw some pretty smutty Mortal Kombat in my day.
Oh, yeah.
But it never sat well with me. And I don't know if it was just like because I like the lore and I felt like many of those illustrations were not like, they weren't canon, which is fine. But like, I feel if you're going to make non-canon art, it should make sense within the lore.
I agree with you. Yes, there's a totally unrelated thing that I will get to, yes, but you're absolutely right about that. It has to have some connection to what's happening. Otherwise, it seems very strange. It's very unnerving.
I think that's also why I can't do most porn. Not just because I'm very offended by people ripping good leggings, but it's usually just like I don't believe how we got to this place with these characters.
Mm-hmm. That's actually why I don't watch porn with stories, because it's very peculiar. It's very peculiar how the sex happened, how sex comes about. Yeah, amateur porn and the stories that people are loosely trying to sort of tell. I was playing Madden, now she's sucking my dick. Like, that's a believable story ups and downs, emotional value. I can connect to it.
Yeah.
I see
I
it.
just need enough to know that like it's nice and like everybody's going to be happy about this.
Right.
Like
You
I
know.
don't want it to be like ominous. Like I wouldn't want to see Japanese semen pool and it's like a bunch of crying people. Like no, thank you. But just give me enough. But if you give me too much and you're not committed to it, then I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, why? Also, mislabeled porn gets to me. Like,
What do you mean?
there's like, I'll click on something specifically because it does not mention step siblings, and then I'm being hit with some step siblings. I'm clicking off that. Not interested. Don't like it.
About that is my issue with that is that there's not enough. Like, I don't trust it because I'm certain there is real step sibling porn. Shout out to them. I'm certain there's real incest porn. Shout out to those people. But they call everything, like, people will steal other people's videos and be like, I'm fucking my stepbrother. And I'm like, you can't apply incest like seasoning on, like, barbecue flavored seasoning on everything and then expect it to hit. Like, just taking regular porn and being like, it's my cousin. I'm just like, I understand the intrinsic value of incest porn, but incest porn flavored powder on my potato chips does not make it incest porn. I think you guys run the risk of overdoing it a smidge.
I feel like that seal has been broken quite a while ago.
Yeah, and I have seen real
I
incest.
noticed it's like randomly saying it's incest porn, but then also being kind of mean to somebody in the scene. Like, dumb slut stepsister chokes on low achieving stepbrother's cock. And I'm like, why do I need to know like all the negative points about this person?
Right.
Like, that doesn't make me want to masturbate to this. That makes me wonder about their parenting because they're in the same household, apparently. Now I'm asking all kinds of questions I don't want to. Too much.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that like it would have gotten better, but like in these uncertain times, I find people are just re-uploading whatever under whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because what I use Pornhub for, which I should not do, I'm a bad person for doing it, watching Broadway musicals. So if I put in Dear Evan Hansen, like I want to see people sing their asses off. I do not want to see a butthole.
And Pornhub has musicals?
Yeah.
Do people...
I guess because like YouTube takes it down so fast. Like it used to be you could find a lot of Broadway shows, either entire shows or performances. Like you can't find performances from Wicked. You can't find pretty much anything that's off Broadway, but touring you can't find. But I guess Pornhub doesn't give a shit. I mean, if they're like hosting videos where people are like, oh no, I was underage and trafficked and I would like you to remove this video, and it takes them years to remove it, they're not gonna give a shit about Hamilton. So yeah, it's kind of like Mega Upload.
I see.
I know I'm dating myself, but
no, listen, Mega Upload is where we got our shit. Don't date yourself. It's fine. Everyone should understand the history of goddamn Mega Upload.
I was very surprised. I was talking to somebody who I think was like in their 20s and didn't know what Mega Upload was.
Yeah, it's there's no reason for you to know what your Mega Upload is if you're in your 20s. It's old. It's old. It's over a decade old.
I remember that was like how you got things.
Oh no, I remember, but I realized things are older than we think. Like 2014 was 6 years ago. 2020 was 20 years ago. It's one of those things you don't read.
Oh, that like blows my friggin' mind.
Yeah, the gap between 2013 and 2020 is massive, but it seems really compact. So you have to think of it that way. It's like Mega Upload was before Mega Upload was out of style in 2014, 6 years ago, it was 8 years out of style. So 15 years ago, we were rocking Mega Upload 15
It's
years ago.
insane when you think of how huge the story was with the owner of Mega Upload and getting raided and all that stuff. And he had like an island. And
Right,
now it's like, who? What?
right, right. And that story is real. Let me look at this and see. Owner of Mega Upload raided, because I remember that story, and that story
Yeah, I
was
remember that was one of the stories we covered on like We Nerd Hard, like one of the first episodes.
right.
So yeah, that was a while ago.
hmm So it's like one of those things where you have to kind of note the time. 2012. 2012, they took down Mega Upload. 2012. Right. It's almost 10 years ago.
Oh.
And we were using Mega Upload like champs well before that. And we stopped using Mega Upload around the time they put the crackdown. They put the crackdown on it. So like 3 or 4 years before they stormed the island, we were using Mega Upload. So the 10, 12 years ago, we were using Mega Upload to get all of our good stuff.
Yeah, that's how I got all my mislabeled Panic at the Disco music. Trash. uh, Speaking of these uncertain times, I found a very interesting article about yet another evolution of ghosting. Where is it? Okay. So, Mel Magazine is kind of like this poshy, kind of down under, not down under. What do they call it?
Underground?
No.
Insider?
It's what those like clashy British people, like what they read for their garbage.
Tabloids?
Yes. It's a little tabloidy. It's a little gossipy, but they had a very interesting article which caught my eye. Ghosting, even crueler when you could be dead.
Excuse me?
Yes. Yeah. So it used to be a sick joke that the person who hit you and quit you did so because they left our mortal plane. But during a global pandemic, it's not so funny or unrealistic.
What?
And it got me thinking, A, there are some people that are so self-involved that they actually do prefer to think that people stop talking to them because they've died
Yes.
of a plague.
Yes.
And B, I realize that, oh my God, people that I've had sex with and no longer talk to might be dead because of a plague.
Yes.
It's a lot. And I'm wondering, I was getting annoyed because people were like reaching out to me, like ex flings and things like that. I thought it was because they were trying to get like plague booty, but maybe it's just to make sure that I'm not dead because they also would feel weird if I was dead.
I mean, it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. It's funny. It's so murky that I am refusing to, that I'm not even giving it much. I'm not talking to certain people that I would like to talk to because I don't want to cause them any discomfort, irritation, or anxiety by just suddenly appearing, even if I just want to make sure they're okay, because I know everything's so loaded now. Because you don't know who's talking to you for what, especially you're a lady. So
I mean, I admit that one of my exes I did reach out to, and I was like, look, I don't even know what your deal is. I just want to make sure that you're still in the world.
right.
Because it would be sad if you're just not in the world. Like, you don't have to interact with me. We don't have to talk and everything, but I just want to know you're somewhere out there. And he said, yes, I'm fine. I'm not dead. I was like, nice. And then I just never said anything else because, I'm going to go with that. And that's all I needed. But apparently there are people who they're actually saying because of the pandemic, they are less inclined to ghost?
Um, Ghosting meaning what? I realize we were talking about it before the show that ghosting has now taken to mean the act of anyone who's no longer speaking to anyone else. And now we
Yeah.
don't have a working definition of ghosting because people throw it out there as like if I bump into you, if I have a conversation with you at a bus stop, and you take my email, and then I email you and you don't respond, you've ghosted me, and you really haven't.
And unfortunately, I do feel like that's the new definition of ghosting. Ghosting is pretty much cutting off communication for any reason now.
Right.
Which is why I say I'm not super against ghosting, because I think a lot of ghosting isn't purposeful. It's just people forgot.
Um, you lose track of more people than otherwise, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. You just do. Like you meet a lot of people, you latch on to only a handful of them, realistically.
Yes.
So if you're
I just just human nature. Especially because like I can look at my phone right now and I probably have like 9 dating apps that I used to be on.
yeah,
Like, you meet a lot of people, especially I was in a large metropolitan area with a lot of young people my age. I was very active on date. Like, there's no way you could keep up with that many people.
right,
Like, y you literally would have to have a gimmick for me to remember you, so I could put your name in my phone. And since you talk to people on messaging apps, we're not even putting people's name in our phone anymore. Like, you could go on several dates and fuck somebody without ever committing their phone number to memory or their last name, and it's very easy to do that on Tinder or Hinge or something like that.
right. So I think that there's a level of connection. Like we need to reevaluate what ghosting is. We're using ghosting uh, to like it's like a catch-all for the disappointment of a possible connection that you didn't get a chance to even make, as opposed to a
Yeah.
connection that was broken. And I think there's
I
something like that should be mourned. Like if you wanted to connect with someone and you didn't, that's worthy of mourning and acknowledging. That's valid, but it
yeah,
isn't ghosting, and we need to find a different word for it.
I don't know if a lot of people have the wherewithal to separate that sense of loss and hurt from ghosting. Because really what ghosting is taking that sense of loss and hurt and then saying, "You did this to me and this makes you the bad guy in this situation."
Right,
But I think more people should just say like it's a you feeling, not a them feeling. As frustrated it is, it's frustrating to look at it like
right,
that. But I feel like at least for me, that is the healthiest way.
right,
Because like if I met somebody, had a good time, maybe hooked up, uh, got an orgasm or two, and then I never hear from them again, it does suck.
right.
But I don't you don't really know what somebody's deal is. And I mean, there are definitely non-hookup ghostings, like people who were dating for like half a year and then the person
Oh
ghosted.
yeah,
I
no,
think
that's ghosting. That's if you're legitimately dating for half a year and that person just disappears off Earth. Yes, that's ghosting. Jesus.
yeah, that's what I feel like we should reserve ghosting for when you have an established relationship. Not
Um,
somebody who stopped talking to you after 2 or 3 dates, because that's not like a relationship.
right. But I do think that that's a bigger discussion about what we value connection to be. So say if you sleep with someone twice, you might not know their last name or be concerned about their well-being too hot because that's not necessarily the source of your emotional connection to someone. You can fuck 45 people and not worry about any of those 45 people, and then all of a sudden the person you play Mortal Kombat with gets sick and you're devastated. you know
Yeah.
So what is your uh, parameters for emotional connection? Well, we need to be honest with that about ourselves, and I think even with people we're dating, because sometimes we get caught up in there, and we are speaking two different languages to such a degree that the disconnect when it happens causes more harm to one or both parties because no one's using the right language for each other.
Yeah. And I also think people not even miscommunicate, but just don't know how to communicate.
Right.
If they've emotionally attached to you or not.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, I mean, I have cried over animals that have died on the internet that I have never met, but we're following on social media. And that sense of loss is just as real as if, it was a puppy I got to pet every day. And I think, our romantic relationships can be like that too, where you get very wrapped up in your idea of a romantic relationship, and that's really what you're mourning.
Yes.
Not so much the actual relationship itself, because it wasn't there.
Right.
Like,
that's the thing.
Especially if we're not communicating to our partner that we consider them a partner.
Yes. That happens. That is a thing that happens a lot, is where someone has assumed a relationship status because of something else and they haven't had that discussion. If someone fucks you, they might not still consider you anything even close to a relationship person. You might actually spend all day talking to someone and they might consider you a relationship person, and all you do is talk. It really is important that you hash this stuff out before we even get to ghosting.
I think our generation, and maybe a couple of years before us, like, we have been conditioned to not have that conversation.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty much a running joke that what are we? Like you're either weak or stupid or easily used when you're the person asking that question.
Right.
But it's a valid fucking question.
Yes, it is.
And I think if people ask that question more often, there would be less ghosting.
Yes.
But I also think that it is so hard to tell somebody if you don't consider them a relationship person.
Right.
And I mean, I've had people that I was just like, we're having fun, right? And I found out that no, what I assumed was very wrong, and they were very hurt, and I felt very bad. But it was, I think, better in the long run that I say, well, I didn't feel that because of X, Y, and Z. So at least that person can then take that in the next relationship and be like, well, if I want to communicate that I feel like this is a long-term relationship, I should probably not do those things. And I know for me, I'm very frank sexually.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning now that some people might interpret that as, because I've had sex with you, I don't consider you long-term relationship material, or despite it, I can consider you. But I just feel like it's on a case-by-case basis. There have been people who I've hooked up with, like, within hours of knowing them, and I'm like, clearly this is a lifelong friendship and I want to keep you around forever. And then there's people, that I'm like, I can see myself with this person, but I've never seen them, sexually.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think
there's
that's important.
Multitudes.
Right. And that's the thing. The constant communication is key. Asking, talking, and also just communicating what you value as a person. It tends to tip your partner off. Like, in knowing you, I've learned about what you value because you just speak it. And as long as you're able to speak it honestly with each other, then eventually you learn a lot about your partner either way. And that's kind of the point, is to learn a lot is to be speaking freely enough so that you learn, so that you don't have to have these big jumps where someone assumes that you guys go together when you don't, or that someone's been ghosted when they're not, or even to understand what, like, gaps in conversation mean, or what sex means, or all that stuff. So this is a constant communication. That's what we're here. We're promoting constant communication here.
Yes.
That's what
also, I think there are a lot of people who it's way easier to bang than to sit in a room with them in silence.
Right. And that might be your relationship for you and another person, but you got to make sure, like, someone like that is not relationship material for me.
Oh no,
But
that person would go insane.
right.
Like I just realized, like, sometimes it's very hard when you meet somebody and they're perfectly nice, but just certain things just are not going to click. And it
Right.
wouldn't be healthy for you to try to change for them, and it wouldn't be healthy for them to try to change for you.
Right.
But and then sometimes people they're just so damn good at being screwed by you, and you just love having sex with them. But then you realize that, like, that's pretty much the capacity of the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, that requires honest discussions. We are here to have sex. That is our thing. We are the best. We are at our best as a team. As a team, sex partners, we are at our best at that.
And even then, that could change.
Okay?
And I know that gets hurtful when you have, like, a sex buddy, and then you realize, like, you don't really enjoy having sex with a sex buddy anymore, because then you have to explain to them, like, I know it's the same dick, but it's
times change. It's one of those things. Someone you are never owed an infinite amount of sex from someone. If you're in a purely sexual relationship and that changes, it's just not. It is what it is. You are not infinitely owed sex, which is why I say you should always treat having sex like a blessing at any point in time.
Yeah,
because that person could be like, well, nah, for whatever reason, any reason, they don't owe you a good one. They don't.
I in mid thrust that, like, well, this is the last time I'm doing this.
Right. Right. That's it. And that's all it takes. It's perfectly fine. I've had people decide they're not going to do it. I've decided I'm not going to do it. It just is what it is. Those things change. That's one of the reasons why you don't take it for granted and you enjoy it as it happens. You enjoy it in the moment. Love it. Have a good time, because it's sex is more fleeting than we think.
Yeah, it's also super healthy if you don't, like, put people in a box. Like, you are a person for sex. I think that's horrifically unhealthy, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to like gender stereotype it, but I feel like cis-het dudes do that a little too often, but I feel like society has conditioned them to,
Absolutely.
where it's like, you are wifey material, whatever the fuck that's supposed to be.
Right.
And this person is punch meat.
Yes.
Which is something I've actually been called, and I was like, wow. That is
a truly terrible term. That is out of a lifetime of terrible terms. That's in the top 5 easily. Punch meat?
Yeah, punch meat.
Oof. That's that hit the scene. That hit the scene real hard. That terrible term hit the scene real hard. Like, I'm mortified right now. Like, I didn't know that was a thing, and it's really bad.
That sounds like something that would have hurt my feelings real bad in 1930, but was still super hurtful in 2010.
Yeah, it ages really well in terms of a terrible thing to call someone. It really does age really well.
Because it kind of makes you feel like, well, obviously everybody says when you feel demeaned and people aren't respecting your humanity, you feel like a slab of meat. But then it's like, not only you just a slab of meat, you're just like the meat for punching, which seems to be a very disposable cut of meat.
Right. Like, it's like first of all, because it's disregarding the actual act of fucking. Like, it's just reducing it down to, like, its mechanical core, which is like, you're here for the thrusting action, the mechanical thrusting action that will result in my orgasm, and only that.
Yeah, you're here to just receive the thrust, not participate.
You could be you could be a meatloaf, you could be a mattress, whatever. It doesn't matter. You
could be a watermelon with a hole in it.
Yes, it's yeah, that's the worst one. I'm sorry. That is the worst one.
Yeah. So I think when people put people in boxes like that, then it is, yeah, you I feel like then it's ghosting. If you have sex with somebody and you just see like, well, they're for sex, not you don't explain your feelings, you don't communicate with the person,
Right.
you just put in less effort.
Right.
I feel like that's a faux pas there.
Right. It's a major issue.
Yeah, you can put that in the ghosting category.
Yeah, that's demeaning and dehumanizing. Even I just lean dehumanizing. Not allowing a human being to be more of a human being because of a choice that they made, a singular choice that they made, and something that's a very basic one. If sex is a common need and a common thing that comes up, then it would be the same thing as judging someone over wanting a sandwich, and it's really, really absurd that is the thing. So yes, dehumanizing might actually work instead of ghosting, but like I said, it's still evolving. We're still working on it. So.
Well, I feel like as we keep on dumping more things in the category of ghosting, it's just losing its meaning. It's
Right.
basically this person who made me feel bad when we stopped dating. Everything is suddenly ghosting.
Yes. It's I would say, let's say for the purpose of this program going forward, ghosting is when you sever a connection without any discussion or warning. When you sever an established connection, like an actual, like, you like me, I like you, we are going to try and grow together as friends or lovers or in between or whatever, and you have just suddenly severed this connection without any explanation, any discussion. That would be probably how does that sound as a working CuntCast definition of ghosting?
I like that because like I'm reading this article and like a lot of this I would not consider ghosting.
Like what? Okay.
So one person, they used an example, they used the name Lee. She didn't want anything to happen to a guy she really liked. And since the guy she really liked, she didn't hear from him, she said, I thought, like, what if his mom is in the hospital? Or he thought he replied and never did. And it's a small possibility. And that's what makes her feel better. But, like, if somebody just isn't responding, is that really ghosting?
Right. If you're just concerned about someone and you're checking up on them and they're not responding, there's any number of reasons why they haven't.
Yeah. And here's another person. They use the name Brett. And he says, being ghosted indoors is better than being stood up outdoors, which is a real embarrassment and knock to the ego. A week before Cardiff went into lockdown, I began flirting with my hot neighbor over the fence. But when we went out for drinks, she insisted on paying for her half of the bill. I had texted her that I had fun and hoped she did too, but then nothing. I didn't follow up after that. Being ghosted is never good. I'm sorry, Brett. You weren't ghosted.
You weren't ghosted, bro.
That person just didn't have that good a time. It seems like she said bye, paid for her drinks, and then.
You know what's funny is that's the primary reason why you don't flirt with coworkers and neighbors is not that is only because you have to then make a choice of whether you want to make it weird if it doesn't work out. If that makes sense. Where now Brett has to essentially, when you go out with someone and they don't like you that much, you can still wave to your neighbor. You know what I mean? You don't have to like stonewall her or anything, but it's just a matter of it's a matter of whether you're able to deal with that. And like, it's barely even rejection because you didn't get anything. You didn't get a chance to do anything. You literally tested the waters. And she was like,
knock to the people in this article, the Lee girl, they said that her date eventually turned back up a couple of weeks later and told her he wasn't ready for a relationship.
After a date?
He friend zoned me, she said. And I'm like, that's not ghosting. If He literally contacted you again.
Yeah, he actually hit you up and told you what he needed to tell you. That's actually the best case scenario. You heard from him. There is now a resolution that you can look to via text. Like I imagine text. Via text.
Yeah, like that's not a ghosting.
Yeah,
like he just needed some time. He processed and then he communicated with you.
Right. I don't. That's not only not ghosting, but that is probably the best case scenario.
Friend zoning. Can we kill the 2020 people? We're not friend zoning people.
There's no such the friend zone. It's like no, he didn't want and he explained it to you. It wasn't. The friend zone is all a myth. We'll just go ahead and say that. Is it okay to say it's a myth?
Yes.
Because it's just people just have the autonomy to decide to do what they do to people, set up people as they'd like in their life, and that's fine. And it doesn't mean that we need to have this whole friend zone concept, which is like invalidate. Like it really does seem like the complex network of whatever it is that goes on in your head before you decide whether someone's going to be platonic or sexual or in between or whatever. It's just like breaking it down to some type. It really does seem like it's hyper minimizing it. I kind of hate it. So,
and I guess for me, I'm like, but like being friends is so much better.
Right. But it's just like either way.
Because you get to have lots of friends. The way society is set up, like, I don't know. Friends seems way better. In my humble opinion.
The way society is set up, a dynamic series of roles and people are probably best. So like I said, and that's the thing, it depends on who you know. Like I said, friends are more valuable to you than sex partner. And some people, sex partners are more valuable to them than friends. And some people won't turn all their sex partners into relationships. And some people want to have sex with all their friends. It really is so much going on that we need to talk about and stop trying to sweep all the terms under one rug. That's the moral of the story, guys. The moral of the story.
Yeah. Also, not everybody's ghosting you. Sometimes people are just going through some things.
Especially now.
And if somebody literally calls you back, you cannot say that person ghosted you.
He literally explained himself. He explained himself.
Literally. And it was like a couple of weeks later, like, okay, maybe that took a little while, but like global pandemic, bitch.
Right.
Like,
yeah, you gotta be super kind to people. Even if you want to speak to them, even if you want to hear from them, you gotta be super kind to people. There's a million and one things happening. Everyone is home, but everyone is home with themselves, and that is anywhere from delightful to 7 circles of hell, depending on the person, depending on their home.
We should change the social contract where going on one date with somebody doesn't beholden you to a relationship.
No.
It's just the one date. I think everybody should get the one free.
I don't know. I mean, everything else has a trial period.
Seriously. I got a free month of Netflix.
Right. It's like, all right, yeah. And also, if you really are looking for a relationship, then that should be known. This is all stuff that should be talked about. You know, and it comes, like I said, it should be allowed to come up naturally. So,
I think like it's a generational thing. Like Gen X and millennials, like we're so afraid to say that we want labels on things, and then at the same time we're terrified of the labels themselves.
Well, looking at how cishet dudes kind of hamstring everyone around them with the labels that they give them, I can totally see why people wouldn't want labels. I would be willing to make a strong argument that the concept of labels has been ruined by cishet dudes.
Yeah.
Because, we...
And sometimes I get very sensitive about it. Like one of my I literally used to call him my not boyfriend because we had not been dating for 10 years. Kind of towards the end when he kind of up and decided like, well, we should be more serious because we've been dating. And I'm like, have we been dating? Because I don't remember having that conversation with you. And then suddenly like I was a bad guy. But I'm like, literally never wanted to label it. And now suddenly it was something because you decided that. It's not how it works, buddy.
Right.
Like, I think doing away with labels makes it more complicated, but you have to have the maturity and willingness to label things
Mhm.
sometimes.
Okay, I hate to say this, but even a labelless relationship is still a label.
Yeah.
You know, it needs to be established through communication and honest addressing of feelings and different dynamics, how you were raised, how the other
And we
person
do
evolves.
label it. We start now there's situationships, you know.
Right.
We definitely know what we're talking about when we talk about it, even if you want to tap dance around it.
Right.
It's like here's this person that I don't want to tether myself to, but I definitely don't want to be away from. I definitely want to bang them, and I definitely want them banging me, but like maybe he shouldn't bang anybody else, but I will try monogamy this week, but maybe not so much next week. Like it seems very stressful. A lot of stress.
Right. And it's a lot of trying to guess the market when you could just be asking the market and the market could tell you things. So yeah, just don't guess the market, folks. Don't do that.
I think just like I said, constant communication would make all of this better.
Yes, it would. I mean, there are levels to that, but like I said, there's a whole show. There are several shows we could talk about this and everything. So I'm not even going to bog
Yeah.
down the end of this
But I
program.
think the new social contract should definitely be like one date doesn't mean a relationship.
Yes.
And if somebody doesn't talk to you after that, you know that they just weren't into it.
There you go.
Now, if somebody has a repeated pattern of hitting you up and then never talking to you, then only hitting you up when they're horny, then you should know that clearly this person A doesn't want to communicate what they actually want. B may not deserve what they want out of you. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to give to them, you're completely within their right. Uh, and see if you try to have a conversation about, the parameters of your relationship and that person balks, you don't stop stop taking those calls. And if you do that, you are then not ghosting them. You are setting a boundary and keeping it.
There you go.
There should be like a workbook with like a roadmap to proper like sports fucking.
I mean, yeah.
It's like, are you communicating with your partners? If not, stop
Stop
and
fucking.
do that
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. Stop fucking. Also, well, you get more of what you like in communicating what you like and not trying to game the system. Because what happens is it sounds like just hearing cishet dudes talk about it is essentially there's a fear that in honesty they will get less of what they want. But I find that there's an abundance of what you want when it's honest. Trying to trick
Mhm.
everyone creates an atmosphere of general distrust that means that everything goes slower. Because the person has to then
It
feel you
literally
out.
makes people not want to do it anymore. Like, I literally don't have the energy to seek more or new partners just because, like, I don't feel like it is worth it.
Right.
I mean, obviously, now it's not even in the conversation. But if there wasn't a global pandemic, I wouldn't be seeking partners either just because it's not worth it.
Right.
It seems too stressful. And I used to say I was recreational with my vagina, and it's not fun. So it's no longer for sport or fun. So why am I doing it?
Right. And that's an honest change. So someone who might have been casually fucking you for years will no longer be able to. And that's just growth. That's done and over with. Which happens.
And I actually was talking to somebody and they're like, so like your whole thing, it was just BS. Like you were just lying to yourself. And I'm like, no, what
Mm,
once satisfied me still satisfied me then. It just doesn't satisfy me now.
yes, you grew and changed as a person over time, you see. based on new experiences and new information.
Yeah.
That's what happened. He grew and changed as a person. The weird thing is jamming somebody up for what they did at 24 versus what they did at 34 is always a weird thing that comes up so much in public discourse. I'm like, well, that's guys. Guys. But
And I try not to judge people on what they find out they need, because I think as sexual beings, we're always finding new things about ourselves. We're growing as we, have new partners. We discover new things about ourselves. We always have different new facets to our personalities that we're discovering.
right.
And, new experiences change you. And if you're now finding, for me, it was definitely uh, dealing with corporate America.
Right.
And I realized, like, you know what, I need more emotional support. And I'm not finding it in this. So I now don't have as much room to just give,
Right.
because I have 40 hours a week at minimum where I'm giving to a wall that just takes. You can't expect somebody to be the same person with that.
Right.
I think that when people have kids, and now it's like I have all these responsibilities. So now that I have new responsibilities, can I really? I don't have much space to be preoccupied with banging because I have to keep this tiny human from all the things it wants to do to like lead to its demise
Right.
or maiming.
Yes.
That's a full-time job.
It's always really those funny stories I hear from moms who always have the discussion with guys who knew them before they had kids, and the guys are always like weirdly disappointed. I'm like, they had a kid. Shit just might be different. It might not be different, but it might be different. it might be different. You can't call it, but it's always strange when you're surprised that someone changed dynamically with a massive with a massive reason to change. It's not like somebody like played Final Fantasy for a year and they came back and were like, I don't want to fuck, I like Final Fantasy. That's a different thing. You might have missed that one. But if someone has a child, that's a very believable, logical, possible change in their approach to sex and sexuality. Or just you. They might just be tired of your dumbass. It happens. And yeah. But
I remember there was somebody that I knew even before I went to college, and I started talking to him again maybe like a year ago, just because he's hit me up on Facebook, and I just realized like he had not changed. He was basically the same person from high school, and I couldn't click with him the way I clicked before.
right.
Especially because he was like throwing all this sexual innuendo, and I'm like, no, we don't do that here anymore. It's like, you don't need to pepper it. Like, I'm well aware you have a cock, sir. Very aware. Also, not impressed by it. So, it felt like, even though he was technically older than me, it felt to me like I was trying to talk to a teenager, which felt ick, and I just couldn't do it.
Right. I understand.
Like things I would have excused as a teenager, even maybe a 20-year-old, like the whole, I want to spend some time with you, but they don't actually ever make plans to. Like that's something I would have tolerated back then, but like I can't now.
Right.
Just because it's like, well, now time is very precious because we all have jobs and families and health and all kinds of shit we got to deal with. So like, if you wanted to spend time with me, you would have. And I would have thought that would be too aggressive or mean. But now it's like, I'm old. I don't give a shit.
Right.
And one thing I am kind of happy, I feel like some of the limestone of cis het social contracts where like everybody's expected to do X, Y, and Z to be polite will be eroded after this is over because we're gonna have to like rebuild and learn how to communicate with ourselves again.
Mm-hmm.
Because we went from, being able to do this whole hoopla and parade and kind of practice, and we will have the date and we'll be here. But now we have like very instant but distant communication. I feel like that is just going to fundamentally change courtship,
Right.
if you could call it that anymore, especially because it's like you want to court somebody at this point now. You go through their social media and all their tweets. you get so much more.
It would seem you're a bit of a racist, my lord.
Yeah. Like I used to always like, I'm not gonna Google somebody before I go on a date with them. And then like I started doing that and I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person.
I'm
Just
not.
going through their Facebook or going through their tweets. And I'm just like, oh no,
Well,
I'm not doing that.
a lot of issues have become life or death, whether it's because of the current administration or the plague virus or whatever, or some combination of the both or both of them. A lot of issues are legitimate life or death issues that you can't be with someone who takes it lightly. So it's like, there's no reason to even have the courtship process where someone's going to be like a month later, like, well, I love you, but coronavirus is a government hoax, And I'm just like, so if the coronavirus is a hoax to you, let's get that out of the way before I even speak to you again. So I don't think it's wrong.
I remember I was like a year into like talking to somebody before I found out that they didn't believe in the moon landing.
Right.
But then they couldn't tell me why they would believe there would be a mass government conspiracy to lie about it. Because I'm like, who benefits from that lie?
Right.
And they were so like mad. Or finding out that somebody believes in ancient aliens that, made the brown people build the things.
Oh, I thought because I believe in aliens, but I don't believe they built the pyramids. That just seems like slaves did it. Yeah. Slaves can do a shit ton of stuff because they're slaves, you see.
Which I actually had to explain that to somebody on a date, and they got very upset. Because he's like, you don't think like the Mayan pyramids and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why don't you think the Mayans built them? It's like, well, because, it'd be impossible. I'm like, no, it wouldn't.
It just requires
when you have 200 people that have to do whatever the fuck you say, you can get them to move a stone.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah. I feel like we underestimate the power of slavery. A lot of our magical wonders are built on the backs of slaves. So... Yeah. All right.
I've been watching a lot of old History Channel, which is why I'm newly upset about ancient aliens.
Listen, it's perfectly fine. I didn't
realize how racist that was.
Yes. Well, like I said, that's a whole other program. You have work to do. I'm just saying.
Well, we have been talking for like an hour. And I unfortunately have to continue staring off into the distance, imagining what it's like to go places. Remember places? I used to go to like one place and another place. And after that other place, you go to yet another place. Yeah, those were cool.
Yeah, we've now been replaced with the "Is this place still open?" game you can play if you have a car. And you go to a place where you go and you go, oh, that place is still open. Oh, that place is pretty closed. Oh, that place boarded up their windows, but it's not closed. Let me look up. Oh, they're in there, but the store is closed. You can only order from there. Oh, can you go in there? Or you can only go in there on the weekends. Like, just, is this place still open? It's a fun game. It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite game now is how much death am I risking by getting this order?
Right.
Like, do I want Five Guys or will I get the Rona?
That's why it's very important that you communicate with your people, your partners, and everything, because we are now operating with that, like the looming specter of death when you go to order Grubhub. And as a result, don't waste nobody's fucking time. We're all out here measuring the specter of death when we order fucking large fries. So don't waste anybody's fucking time. Speak your goddamn mind. Be honest.
Yeah. And
Communicate.
maybe cut somebody some slack
Right.
if they're not super up to talking romantically or sexually.
Yeah. They might be terrified. They might be terrified from their Grubhub order coming into the house. They are hungry, but they're also terrified. That's a lot.
Huh.
So, there you go.
Huh. Something to consider. Well, hopefully may all of your Grubhub orders be double wrapped. And may all of your stores have hand sanitizer. And I'll see you all next Tuesday.
Enjoy what you heard? Become a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/unfridays and follow the network at twitter.com/unfridays. You know what makes racists really mad? Black people having a good time. And we really have a good time making these podcasts. So, if you donate, then it's technically the same thing as funding the unhappiness of racists everywhere. Awesome, right? You know what to do.